here today. We'll see you next in the Agriculture Committee, which begins just a half an hour from now.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Susan.
And to our viewers, you have a good day today. Thanks for being with us. We'll be back at 7 Eastern Time tomorrow. And right now, time for live coverage of the U.S. House of Representatives.
The Chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., December 8, 2011. I hereby appoint the Honorable Candace S. Miller to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, John A. Boehner, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Our prayer today will be offered by our chaplain, Father Conroy.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we give you thanks for giving us another day. Once again, we come to ask wisdom, patience, peace, and understanding for the members of this people's house. Give them the generosity of heart and the courage of true leadership to work toward a common solution to the many issues facing our nation. This might call for compromise, even sacrifice on both sides. As true statesmen and women, may they find the fortitude to make judgments to benefit all Americans in their time of need. May all that is done this day be for your greater honor and glory. Amen.
The Chair has examined the Journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House her approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the Journal stands approved. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
Madam Speaker, pursuant to Clause 1, Rule 1, I demand a vote on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the Journal.
And the question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the Journal. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The Journal stands approved.
Madam Speaker, I object to the vote on the grounds that a quorum is not present and make a point of order that a quorum is not present.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question are postponed. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Poe.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Chair will entertain up to five requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise?
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute.
And the gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, the Justice Department appears to have gone rogue. Instead of enforcing the law, they seem to be recklessly encouraging violations of law. The Justice Department, with the aid of the ATF, apparently facilitated the smuggling of over 2,000 weapons to the drug cartels south of the border, the national enemy of Mexico, the drug cartels. Those weapons were used to kill at least 200 Mexican nationals and two U.S. law enforcement agents. Who is responsible for this conduct? The Attorney General says he was unaware of Fast and Furious. He claims he either didn't get the memo or he didn't read it. That's a lame excuse. The Attorney General is the chief lawyer and law enforcement officer in the country. If people under him violated U.S. or international law, they need to be held accountable, even if it means somebody goes to jail. We need an independent special counsel to investigate the Justice Department and the ATF. The Department of Justice cannot be trusted to investigate themselves because the agency has lost credibility. Even Washington insiders responsible for Fast and Furious cannot hide from the long arm of American justice, because justice is what we do in this country, and that's just the way it is.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina rise? The gentleman is recognized.
Wall Street may be in disrepute with most Americans, but their power here, their political power in Congress, is undiminished. Americans strongly support a consumer watchdog, the new Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but the CFPB has become Republicans' new least favorite agency, which greatly pleases their friends on Wall Street. Months ago, Republicans in the other body announced that they would block the confirmation of the first director of the new agency, whether the nominee was Elizabeth Warren or anyone else, unless Congress stripped the agency of its independence and of the powers to protect consumers from the abuses that were rampant in the last decade. In the next day or two, the other body will vote on the confirmation of Richard Cordray to head the CFPB. If the vote goes as expected, Republicans will abuse their constitutional confirmation powers to hobble the new agency. They don't want Elizabeth Warren. They don't want Richard Cordray. They don't want anyone because they don't want the agency, and they don't want the agency because they don't want to protect consumers. Republicans are willing to leave consumers vulnerable, again, to predatory lending practices. They're willing to leave the economy vulnerable, again, to another financial crisis to please their friends on Wall Street. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois rise?
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to express my concern over another example of rampant government regulation. For 17 years, the Food and Drug Administration has sought to ignore congressional intent and create a vast new regulatory regime for dietary supplements. Millions of Americans, including many of my constituents and my family, rely on dietary supplements as part of their everyday health maintenance routine. Moreover, they play an important role in ensuring that people take individual responsibility for preventative health care. We all can agree that the FDA should not limit Americans' access to dietary supplements. In January, President Obama issued an executive order to ensure that the FDA's new rules will not limit access. Last week, the comment period on the FDA's draft guidelines closed. Now that they've heard from the public, and now that I'm sure they've heard from countless Americans who share my concern, I urge them to go back to the drawing board and ensure that they do not limit Americans' access to dietary supplements. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Connecticut rise? The gentlelady is recognized.
At a recent horse sale in Kentucky, Breeders' Cup winner Royal Delta sold for $8.5 million as part of the sale of the late Saudi prince Saud bin Khalid's farm. 3 of the Saudis' other horses also sold for 7 figures. A total of 22 horses were sold that day for $1 million or more, compared with only 8 sold in 2010. Every millionaire who purchased these horses benefited from a Republican-sponsored taxpayer subsidy written into the last 2008 Farm Bill. It allows them to recover the cost of the horse. Even as they call for more budget cuts, Republicans used that bill to transfer wealth, nearly $500 million from the pockets of ordinary taxpayers to the coffers of wealthy racing interests. One example of how Republicans will go to absurd lengths to support the wealthiest 1% of Americans while turning their backs on the middle class and working families. Now they refuse to take up a payroll tax cut extension and expansion that would mean $1,500 for 160 million people while they protect the tax breaks for 350,000 millionaires. They refuse to extend unemployment insurance to save 200,000 jobs. Our nation deserves better leadership than this. Republicans need to stop giving out handouts to millionaire racing horse owners and start addressing the needs of the vast majority of American families.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise? The gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, an article in last Monday's Weekly Standard reveals the systematic execution and harvesting of organs in China's prisons. The article provides first-hand accounts of the targeted elimination of religious prisoners, prisoners of conscience, and political opponents of the regime, minorities including the Falun Gong, Uyghurs, House Christians, and Tibetans. Executed, followed by organ transplant surgeries, some being performed while the victims are still alive, numbering in the tens of thousands. Furthermore, foreign companies are already making investments to benefit off the thriving organ transplant market. Pharmaceutical companies like Roche and Isotechnica Pharma have been involved in clinical drug testing of transplant patients. A British firm, TFP Ryder Healthcare, is proposing a medical facility that would include an organ transplant center. Before they follow suit, U.S. companies must understand the unethical climate that exists in China, and our State Department and the UN must treat these actions as an abuse of China's international agreements and human rights of their own people. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise? Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of the Lions Club International Century of Service Commemorative Coin Act. This legislation commemorates the Lions Club's 2017 centennial at no cost to the taxpayer, as the cost will be paid for by sales to the public. As former president and zone chairman of my local Lions Club in Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, I know firsthand the great work done by Lions Club International, which now has 1.3 million members and chapters spanning every corner of the globe. The Lions Clubs focus on the 5 goals of preserving sight, combating disability, promoting health, serving youth, and disaster relief, where Lions Clubs donated over $50 million in relief funds to Japan, Haiti, and most recently to our own southern states. I commend the great work carried out by Lions Club International and look forward to helping them commemorate their 2017 centennial year.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise? The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today on behalf of the millions of people in this country, including the 55 million seniors, disabled workers, widows, and children currently receiving Social Security benefits that have their Social Security unnecessarily targeted as part of the debt reduction talks. Now more than ever, we cannot jeopardize earned benefits of seniors who have worked so hard over their lifetimes to retire with dignity. Every senior deserves the dignity in their retirement. Every senior, no exceptions. For almost 2/3 of America's seniors, Social Security is the primary source of retirement income. Social Security is also a lifeline for workers who became disabled and for families who have lost a breadwinner. In the 16th District of Texas that I represent, over 98,000 El Pasoans receive Social Security benefits. They depend on these benefits to buy groceries, pay utility bills, and fill their gas tanks. As their representative, I want to ensure that we uphold the decades-old promise to the American worker in return for their years of hard work and contributions, that we ensure dignity in retirement, assistance if disabled, and support for their surviving children. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise? The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to encourage my colleagues to give a little something back this season to those who give so much. Every year, we accumulate thousands of frequent flyer miles as we travel between our districts in Washington, D.C. For the past several years, I've donated my frequent flyer miles to the Fisher's House Hero Miles program, which provides free airline tickets to American soldiers and their families, and to the Children's Miracle Network, a nonprofit organization dedicated to saving and improving the lives of children. Most of my frequent flyer miles this year came from congressional travel, and I don't think it's right to use them for myself. What I do know is that there's no better way for us to use our frequent flyer miles than to help troops and their families see each other or to help sick kids get well. I encourage each of my colleagues to join me and donate the frequent flyer miles you receive for government-funded congressional travel to programs like the Fisher House and the Children's Miracle Network, and to do it this holiday season. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, by direction of the Committee on Rules, I call up House Resolution 487 and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Calendar Number 96, House Resolution 487, resolved that at any time after the adoption of this resolution, the Speaker may, pursuant to Clause 2B of Rule 18, declare the House resolved into the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of the bill, H.R. 1633, to establish a temporary prohibition against revising any national ambient air quality standard applicable to coarse particulate matter, to limit federal regulation of nuisance dust in areas in which such dust is regulated under state, tribal, or local law, and for other purposes. The first reading of the bill shall be dispensed with. All points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. General debate shall be confined to the bill and shall not exceed 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce. After general debate, the bill shall be considered for amendment under the 5-minute rule. It shall be in order to consider as an original bill for the purpose of amendment under the 5-minute rule the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Energy and Commerce now printed in the bill. The committee amendment in the nature of a substitute shall be considered as read. All points of order against the committee amendment in the nature of a substitute are waived. No amendment to the committee amendment in the nature of a substitute shall be in order, except those printed in the report of the Committee on Rules accompanying this resolution. Each such amendment may be offered only in the order printed in the report. may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, and shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question in the House or in the Committee of the Whole. All points of order against such amendments are waived. At the conclusion of consideration of the bill for amendment, the committee shall rise and report the bill to the House with such amendments as may have been adopted. Any member may demand a separate vote in the House on any amendment adopted in the Committee of the Whole to the bill or to the committee amendment in the nature of a substitute. The previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill and amendments thereto to final passage without intervening motion except one motion to recommit with or without instructions.
The Chair will receive a message.
Madam Speaker, a message from the Senate.
Madam Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate has passed S. 1958, an act to extend the National Flood Insurance Program until May 31st, 2012, in which the concurrence of the House is requested.
The gentleman from Florida is now recognized for 1 hour.
Madam Speaker, for the purpose of debate only, I yield the customary 30 minutes to my colleague from Colorado, the gentleman, Mr. Polis, pending which I also yield myself such time as I may consume. During consideration of the resolution, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only. Madam Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in support of the rule and under the underlying bill. House Resolution 487 provides for a structured rule for consideration of House Resolution 1633, the Farm Dust Regulation Prevention Act. The rule makes 8 of 11 amendments submitted to the Rules Committee in order, a majority of which are Democrat amendments, in order to have a robust debate here on the House floor of the House of Representatives. H.R. 1633, passed out of Energy Commerce Committee with bipartisan support after proceeding through the committee process under regular order. A subcommittee hearing was followed by a subcommittee markup, and then a markup was held by the full committee, which passed the bill with bipartisan support. The Farm Dust Regulation Prevention Act is quite simple. It seeks regulatory certainty in the short time and a regulatory common sense approach in the long term. Specifically, this legislation does 2 things. First, the short term. The Farm Dust Regulation Prevention Act would temporarily prohibit the EPA from issuing a new coarse particulate matter standard for 1 year. H.R. 1633 does not prohibit EPA from issuing a revised standard for coarse particulate matter after this 1-year timeout. Coarse particulate matter, or PM10, is also known by a much more common name, dust. Second, in the longer term, this legislation would limit future EPA regulation of nuisance dust to areas where it is not already regulated by state or local government, where it causes substantial adverse effects and where the benefits of the EPA stepping in would outweigh the cost. Nuisance dust is particulate matter that is generated primarily from natural sources, dirt roads, earth moving, or other common farm activities. A nuisance dust is pieces of plants plowed up during tilling of soil, distributed by movement of livestock, or bits of rock kicked up by a truck driving down a dirt road. The definition specifically precludes combustion emissions, coal combustion residues, and radioactive particulate matter from mining operations. H.R. 1633 does not eliminate EPA's authority to step in if local or state regulatory efforts fall short of what is needed to adequately protect the public. The bill would allow EPA to step in and regulate nuisance dust in areas where states and localities do not do so, if substantially hurts the public health and if benefits of applying these standards outweigh the cost. So in summary, if it isn't regulated, would harm the public health, and the benefit of regulation would outweigh the cost of regulation, and the EPA could and presumably would fill that void. While EPA Administrator Jackson has announced that she does not plan on changing this standard, EPA has been actively considering a revised more costly and stringent standard as part of the review process. The same review process increased the stringency of that standard in 1996 and most recently in 2006. Prior to the Administrator's announcement, EPA staff had recommended further changes to the standard. Despite Administrator Jackson's statement, there is nothing currently on the books preventing the EPA from adopting a stricter regulation. Further, as we all know, the environmental lobby could force a more stringent standard regardless of what the EPA announces, finalizes, or proposes through legal action. This legislation provides ironclad certainty to farmers, ranchers, small business owners, and that farm dust would stay off the EPA's to-do list for at least another year. For that very reason, farming, agriculture, rural, smart business organizations of all shapes and sizes have put their steadfast support behind this legislation. To them, certainty means the ability to grow their business by creating jobs in their communities, feeding every American, and providing for their families through the sale of the fruits of their labors. The agriculture community, and more largely rural America, is critical to the economic growth of job creation. The agriculture sector alone supports 1.8 million American jobs and represents 5% of our nation's total exports. The Obama administration has acknowledged the importance of economic health for rural America. In fact, the President's White House Council on White House Rural Council has claimed that rural America is the center or central to the economic health and prosperity of our nation. Unfortunately, it is often rural communities, particularly those in western United States, that suffer from the highest rates of unemployment and are least equipped to bear the burden of additional costs stemming from Washington. So once again, Madam Speaker, I rise to support this rule and the underlying legislation. The relevant committee of jurisdictions has worked to provide us with a bipartisan bill which is at its core, quite simply, offers regulatory certainty in the short term and common sense regulatory relief in the long. This bill is not a cure-all, but is a step in the right direction. While a small step, it is a common sense approach to fixing what's wrong in Washington, D.C. It's a step that many in Congress on both sides of the aisles seem ready and willing to take. As I mentioned, the Farm Dust Regulation Prevention Act passed out of subcommittee and full committee with bipartisan support. The bill has over 100 bipartisan co-sponsors. Companion legislation also in the Senate enjoys that same bipartisan support. Let's assure rural businesses and American farmers that, at least for one more year, they can cross dust off the list of the potential bureaucratic burdens passed down from Washington. I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on the rule and yes on the underlying bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Florida reserves. The gentleman from Colorado.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank my colleague for yielding me the customary 30 minutes, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in opposition to the rule and the underlying bill. Madam Speaker, today there are very serious challenges facing our country, facing rural America, suburban America, and urban America. In the next 3 weeks, Congress has to address the payroll tax cut issue, or there will be an enormous tax increase, over $1,000 per family, to the American middle class. This Congress has to pass a budget, or the government will shut down. This Congress has to address a number of other expiring tax revisions, all in the next 3 weeks. This is real work to do, real work that needs to be done for the American middle class, the American people, for farmers, for businessmen and women, and for workers. And yet today, this body is not taking on real work. Instead, we're addressing an illusory problem, a fake problem, rather than a real one. My colleague from Florida mentioned the specter of someone somehow regulating the dust kicked up by a truck on a dirt road. I don't think there's a single member of this body that wants to regulate the dust that's kicked up by a truck on a dirt road. The EPA certainly doesn't. The farmers don't want us to. Members of Congress don't want us to. So what are we exactly talking about? Instead of addressing the serious problems that are facing the nation, we're talking about a bill that satisfies talking points, has a few unintended consequences, which I'll get into in my remarks, and ignores the real problems of today. This bill before us claims to block the EPA from implementing a rule that doesn't even exist, hasn't even been thought up, is opposed by the head of the EPA. That's right, we've got millions of unemployed Americans, a massive tax increase looming, And yet here we have a bill to stop the EPA from doing something it's not doing. EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson just told Congress specifically that they have no intention of doing a rule in this area because the existing rules passed during the Reagan administration are adequate. So instead of worrying about a non-existent farm dust rule, maybe we should pass a regulatory ban on blowing smoke, because that's exactly what Congress is doing with this bill here today. Not only does this bill seek to address a non-existent problem, Madam Speaker, but it also has a number of unintended consequences. The new loopholes it creates in the mining and other sectors will have severe public health and environmental impacts. Now, there'll be a number of amendments that have been allowed under this rule that will go into discussion and tailoring of this bill to hopefully roll back some of these unintended consequences. But what this bill does, rather than solve a problem, is create a slew of new problems which we would need to address. This bill is chock full of exemptions for major industries. It allows more arsenic and lead pollution from industrial sources. Dire consequences for health and well-being. It disables the ambient air quality standards with the Clean Air Act. This bill won't help farmers at all because it won't fend off any onerous regulation, because none of the regulation that is being contemplated is even being thought of by anybody in the EPA. Interestingly, what this bill will do is it allows the release of more pollution from industrial sources like open pit mining, coal processing facilities, cement kilns, and smelters. This has nothing to do with the family farms that you're going to hear people talk about debating this bill. And that's why this bill's main supporters are not farmers, but they're the mining industry. In fact, this bill has gained vocal support from the Mining Association, and one of the biggest groups representing farmers, the National Farmers Union, has said this bill isn't necessary. In fact, in October, National Farmers Union President Roger Johnson said the National Farmers Union is pleased to see EPA Administrator Jackson provide final clarification for members of Congress and the agriculture community that the agency does not have plans to regulate farm dust. He went on, lately there's been considerable anxiety within the farming community that EPA is going to regulate dust on farms. We hope this action finally puts to rest the misinformation regarding dust regulation and eases the minds of farmers and ranchers across the country. Yet, instead of letting sleeping dogs lie and quelling the ridiculous rumors that somebody plans to regulate dust kicked up from cars on dirt roads, here we have members of this body reinvigorated and giving credibility to these false rumors, scaring the hardworking farmers of America into thinking somehow government is about to regulate something that no one is purporting to regulate. Furthermore, during committee consideration of this bill, an amendment by Congressman Butterfield would have explicitly limited this bill to agriculture, which is what the proponents of this bill purported to be about. And yet the majority voted down that amendment, sending a clear message that this bill is not about farmers. Let us see this bill for what it really is, another effort to attack the EPA and prevent the EPA from implementing the Clean Air Act under common sense rules to protect our public health. It's time to get serious with the business of the House, to take on the real tasks that we have of expanding the payroll tax, passing a budget, and stop making up problems and then making up solutions that cause more problems than they purport to solve. We've already got enough problems that this Congress and this country needs to work on. Let's get to work. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Colorado reserves his time. The gentleman from Florida.
I'll reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Florida reserves. Gentleman from Colorado.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's my honor to yield 3 minutes to the gentlewoman from Wisconsin, Ms. Baldwin.
Gentlelady from Wisconsin is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding time. Madam Speaker, the bill before us today is entitled the Farm Dust Regulation Prevention Act of 2011. I want to make something very clear. If we were here today voting on a bill that actually stopped farm dust from being regulated by the EPA, I would support it. Agriculture is hugely important to my home state of Wisconsin, and the thought of regulating farm dust on a federal level is simply ridiculous. However, there is no attempt by the EPA to regulate farm dust. Administrator Lisa Jackson said that the EPA has no intention of regulating farm dust. The Republican Senate sponsor of this bill, former Secretary of Agriculture Mike Johans, states that the EPA has provided, and I quote, unequivocal assurance that it won't attempt to regulate farm dust, end quote. This legislation is not about farm dust. Instead, this bill creates a new category of pollution called nuisance dust and exempts it from the Clean Air Act entirely. To be clear, nuisance dust is a made-up term that has no basis in established science. Under this legislation, particulate pollution from open-pit mines, mine processing plants, sand mines, lead smelters, and cement kilns would be exempt from the Clean Air Act. These facilities emit coarse and fine particulates, arsenic, lead, mercury, and other toxic substances. Now, I don't know about you, Madam Speaker, but this doesn't sound like farm dust to me. I agree with my colleague, Congressman John Dingell, who said this is a solution in search of a problem. During the Energy and Commerce Committee markup, the majority showed us that this bill isn't about farm dust at all. It's about hacking another hole in the Clean Air Act and stoking the fears of rural Americans and farmers for cheap political points. Americans are so sick of these political games. They want jobs, not fear-mongering and baseless accusations. We shouldn't be wasting our time and theirs dealing with myths. We have real problems that need real solutions. We should be extending the payroll tax relief for hardworking American families. We should be passing a transportation bill that puts Americans back to work, rebuilding our crumbling roads and bridges. We should be extending unemployment insurance to millions of Americans who are still out pounding the pavement day in and day out trying to find work. Republicans need to stop stoking the fears of farmers and rural Americans and get back to fixing the real crisis facing our country, the jobs crisis. I yield back.
Gentleman from Florida.
Reserve my time.
Continues to reserve. The gentleman from Colorado.
Madam Speaker, if we defeat the previous question, I'll offer an amendment to the rule to require that we vote on an unemployment benefit extension and that we vote on a payroll tax holiday extension for next year before we leave for the holidays. I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Lewis.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank my friend and colleague for yielding. Madam Speaker, I rise today to urge my colleagues to extend unemployment benefits now. It is amazing that we have time to debate this farm dust bill, which will pollute our air, but we don't have time to create jobs or to help people who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own. It is our moral obligation to give just a little bit of hope, a little bit of justice to help people survive these cold, difficult, hard times. During this holiday season, I ask each and every one of you to take a deep, hard look within and ask yourselves, is this how I wish to treat my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, my son, my daughter, or my neighbor? The unemployed lost their jobs through no fault of their own. They don't want a handout. They want a job. This small amount of money is just enough to squeeze by while they continue to look for a job. Help them. Please help them keep a roof over their heads, shoes on their feet, food on the table, and heat in their homes. Madam Speaker, this is the least we can do. It is the right thing to do. It is the fair thing to do. Families cannot wait. Give them just a little bit of hope in the name of those elected to serve them. Let's come together and put politics aside and just get it done. Vote no on this rule and extend unemployment insurance here and now. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's a good reason why we should pass this bill. The real cure for unemployment is employment. And if we can remove uncertainty out of the marketplace for farmers and other places in this country through limited regulation, good regulation, but not overburdening the businesses and the job creators of this country, then we have the opportunity of solving that problem and solving it by hiring people. And I'm hoping that this bill will pass, knowing that it probably will in the House. I hope the Senate takes it up. I hope the President signs it. And I hope we end up with a less regulation in an area where many, many jobs could be created, certainty could be provided if we would only pass this bill. Reserve the rest of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Colorado.
Well, I don't see how this bill would create any jobs because it's purporting to undo regulations that don't exist and aren't going to exist. So obviously if somebody at the EPA got the idea to start regulating farm dust, we would probably act to undo those regulations, and that might help create jobs. But nobody's doing that, so this bill does absolutely nothing. I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Washington, Mr. McDermott.
Gentleman from Washington is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, you know, there's a lot of mourning among the comedians of this country that Herman Cain has left the field. But I think the Republican caucus is now stepping in to give the comedians things to laugh at. This bill is about dust. This is dust to throw in the people's eyes. Dust to throw in the American people's eyes so they won't see what's going on here. We're going home a day early. Why aren't we staying here tomorrow? Well, because they haven't got anything to do. Or they can't figure out how to do it. I don't know which it is. In fact, we have never put out a jobs bill in this House. Now, in 11 months of Republicans who said jobs are the issue, boy, we got to get jobs, they haven't produced a single job in 11 months off this floor. They are letting the unemployment extension expire. Beginning in January, 5 million Americans are not going to get benefits from the unemployment insurance because the Republicans have to throw dust in the people's eyes so they won't be able to see. So they won't see, but they know. They're not stupid. The American people can see through this game. They know we're going home because you can't get your act together. You run this House and you can't put a bill out here to extend unemployment benefits. Now you also, I understand that the unemployment bill is an issue, but you can't extend the payroll. Madam Speaker, what's wrong with the Republicans that they can't get their act together, that they can somehow extend the reduction in the payroll tax? That's going to take $1,000 out of every middle-class person's pocket in the next year. And what are we talking about today? Dust. Dust. I can just see it on Jon Stewart. This is a perfect, or maybe it'll be Sean Hannity, I don't know which it'll be. The fact is that this Congress has been a do-nothing Congress on the issues that affect American people. The middle class is getting clobbered, and you're talking about dust. It reminds me of this business. We went through this manufactured stuff about raising the debt limit, and it was such an awful thing. So we created this committee that was going to cut $1.2 trillion. That was magician's talk. You don't want to talk about raising the debt limit. You want to talk about this committee that did nothing. Because the 6 members of the Republican side who came to that committee said from the very start they would not raise taxes. They would not look at revenue.
Additional 30 seconds.
And in my view, if you're serious, you sit down and you talk about everything. The last 3 weeks of that committee, they never even met. That was dust in people's eyes. Get them to talk about a commission. We had all this talk about commission. Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? What's going to happen? In fact, everybody around here knew it was a lot of baloney from the start. And that's what this is today. More baloney. You know, Yogi Berra, who's one of my favorite philosophers, said, this is deja vu all over again. We did this last Christmas. We didn't extend the benefits, and we're doing it again this year. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Florida.
Madam Speaker? Yes, Yogi Berra. It ain't over till it's over. We got time. We have a plan. The House Republicans have a plan. It's found here on this card. We have a plan, a jobs plan. 25 of those issues have already passed this House. They went to the Senate. And where are they? I don't know. They're there. They're ready to be acted on. Let me just give one, which was the union labor in this country rallied around that bill a couple of days ago and said, we want to build the pipeline. It's tens of thousands of jobs. Many of the Democrats opposed that, and yet it's thousands and thousands of jobs. Is it a job creator? Absolutely. Do we have a plan? We have a plan. And that's just one of the 25 that's waiting in the Senate for action. We need to have action there. We have a plan. We have job plans. This is it. And we're ready to move this country forward, get our economy rolling again, creating jobs, and making this economy better for everyone in America. I would reserve the rest of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Colorado.
We have no remaining speakers on our side. I'd like to inquire if the gentleman has any remaining speakers.
I'm ready to close, madam.
What is that? Okay. I'll yield myself such time as I may consume, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
You know, Madam Speaker, we get it, and the American people get it. Just because you repeat something enough times doesn't make it true. What businesses need in this country is long-term certainty and predictability, a fair playing field with clear rules for all. And yet here we are with a bill like this creating more uncertainty by introducing ambiguously drafted bills and new ambiguously drafted standards that skew the rules in favor of some and against others, making it tougher and tougher for small businesses, entrepreneurs, and innovators who don't have teams of lobbyists in Washington, D.C. monitoring every bit of legislation to get by and succeed. The American people understand it wasn't the Environmental Protection Agency that caused this recession, that caused this economic mess we're in, and the economic recovery won't come through creating loopholes in public health laws. If we are serious about helping farmers, there's plenty that we could be doing, but increasing industrial pollution from mining and coal processing isn't something that farmers in my district and across Colorado have asked me to do. Farmers are concerned about many real-life challenges. Farmers are concerned that their kids can't get financing to carry on the family business because the startup and liability costs are too high. Farmers are concerned about the estate tax. Farmers are concerned about getting sued by Monsanto because their crops were contaminated by Roundup-ready pollen. Farmers are concerned about rapid swings in commodity prices because of instability in the market. Political brinksmanship and gridlock creates market instability. And bills that create corporate handouts, loopholes, and more uncertainty like this one aren't helping farmers, they're hurting farmers, and they aren't helping the rest of the country either. In addition to ignoring the needs of farmers, this bill ignores our national debt. In fact, it ignores our own House protocols to pay for things. Oddly enough, not regulating this non-existent regulation isn't cheap. Because of the bureaucratic changes that would ensue from this bill, the nonpartisan CBO score has scored this bill of costing the federal government $10 million. So this bill violates the Republican rule for discretionary authorizations. In fact, while the majority has pledged to adhere to spending limits on all indirect spending bills to include offsetting language, this bill includes no offsetting language, which is particularly grating because this bill doesn't actually do anything besides create more federal bureaucrats. Madam Speaker, with only one committee hearing and a quick vote, this bill shouldn't be before us on the floor today. We have real work to do. We need a good faith effort to get to the bottom of the real issues that affect this country and cause the recession and helping the middle class. This bill is not aimed at doing anything for farmers. It's not even aimed at a real problem. I urge my colleagues to follow the House cut-go guidelines, to table this bill and focus on the real problems we should be working on. We all must stop pretending that the answer to this country's problems is giving handouts and loopholes to those with the most lobbyists here in Washington, D.C. As I mentioned earlier, Madam Speaker, if we defeat the previous question, I will offer an amendment to the rule. And I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of the amendment in the record along with extraneous material immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I urge my colleagues to vote no and defeat the previous question so that we can do the right thing for working families and the millions of Americans looking for a job and vote on an unemployment benefit extension, a payroll tax holiday extension before we leave for next year, 3 more weeks. I urge a no vote on the rule, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Colorado yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This rule provides for ample, open debate, allowing for the colleagues here on this floor and across the aisle, both on our side and theirs, to offer amendments to this bill. The underlying bill isn't particularly controversial. As a matter of fact, it's rather simple. This bill has no effect on direct spending. It does not appropriate any money or has any new appropriation in it at all. This bill creates no new programs. It has nothing to do with cut-go or pay-as-you-go. Either way, it doesn't do either. And in the end, I can't imagine 186 different groups being so stirred up in this country to write and to call and to ask for this legislation. Groups like the Corn Growers Association and the Sheep Growers Association and the Association of Cooperatives and the Farm Bureaus across this country and the Soybean Association and the Corn Growers Association and many, many more getting stirred up about nothing. No, that argument is heifer dust. It is. This argument is real, it's true, and it's right, and it's absolutely just like what's happening in EPA and many other areas. The underlying bill, as I said, is quite simple. It provides much-needed certainty in the short term for agriculture, ranching, and rural businesses by hitting pause on the EPA's runaway regulatory machine for just one measure for just 1 year. H.R. 1633 simply says that now is not the time to thrust yet another burdensome, costly, and EPA's own judgment unnecessary regulation on rural job creators. In the long term, it offers regulatory relief to rural America by acknowledging that states and local communities are better suited to manage dust in their own communities and thus grant them the flexibility to do so. It's particularly offensive because it's like the old cookie-cutter approach that Washington uses. The same program that's good for Ocoee, Florida is good for Butte, Montana, and inner-city New York, and it's wrong. We ought to get rid of the cookie-cutter approach and go back to local communities and state governments and let them solve their problems as opposed to one-size-fits-all federal government. Given the current state of the economy, given the EPA's administrator's own comments about the lack of need to further regulate farm dust, given the dearth of scientific evidence that says that this is a danger, or there is some sort of danger from farm dust, this legislation represents a common-sense effort to create an environment for job creation that all members should support. It gives farmers, ranchers, and other rural small business owners the certainty, at least when it comes to dust, that costly regulations would not shackle their ability to focus on growing their business, providing for their families, and creating much-needed jobs in rural America. I ask my colleagues to join me in voting in favor of the rule and passage of the underlying bill. I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question on the resolution.
The gentleman yields back his time, and the question is on ordering the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. No. In the opinion of the chairs, the ayes have it. The ayes have
Madam
it.
Speaker,
And the gentleman from Colorado?
on that I ask for the yeas and the nays.
The yeas and nays are requested, and those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. And pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the House will stand in recess, subject to the call of the chair.